So let me share my quick introduction with everybody. Can someone give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen?
We've just got your speaker notes version. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. We're in. It always defaults to that one. Luckily, there's no speaker notes on there, so we're all good. But yeah, I think we will begin. And then if anyone comes through, obviously they can kind of catch up as they come on in. So first of all, like I said, for anyone who missed it, thank you so much for joining us today for, I think we're on our third session of the year now for our breakfast events. And today we're going to be talking about building your presence online. And for anyone who has attended one of our events before, you could probably talk through this bit as well as I can, but just kind of get some of the housekeeping elements out the way. We think it's really important before we kind of head into the content today to tell you a little bit about who we are at In Leeds. And I guess our ultimate goal, we really like to say we want to lift each other up. So that's kind of the goal of today, really, to lift each other up, to find out more about each other, and perhaps to get some kind of really nice takeaways that you can go away and, implement yourself if you want to build your presence online. Our core vision is to advocate for women and others who don't automatically receive equal opportunities, especially during the pandemic. And today I actually wanted to pause a little bit on this particular point. We are definitely at the start of our diversity and inclusion journey. So I did want to give a little bit of a note that if you are sat there today thinking that this panel perhaps doesn't represent who you are, and you would like to get involved in some of our sessions or panels or speaking events moving forwards, please, please, please do reach out. Our email address is leaninleeds@gmail.com. Because I would absolutely love to hear from you and to include you in some of our events moving forwards. And I guess our other points of our vision are to elevate the structure, functions and processes of Lean In within our local community, but also to support our global strategy, because as some of you may know, we are kind of an organization started in the US, but kind of that spans out across the globe. And to touch on some of our objectives, so some of our key objectives, particularly for this year, is to increase our presence in the Leeds, Yorkshire, UK, and global community. So we really want to be recognised as a bit of a force for change. And I guess a bit of a byproduct of being that force for change is it enables us to serve our community. We've been doing a lot of work at the moment, or that our community stream has, to reach out to new people. They've been building links with schools and groups and trying to promote gender equality at a policy level. And then I guess on a bit more of a universal note, we really want to challenge each other to grow, level up, and ultimately lean in. And finally, just some little notes on our code of conduct. So just some things that we'd ask from you today. We'd really like your commitment today. So I know there's a lot of distractions when you're working from home, whether it's kids, dogs, whatever it may be. But as much as we can, it would be great if you could be present and in the room and kind of give our speakers your full attention. We ask you to communicate. And one of the things that I would love for you to do is there is a chat box function. So if you have any questions that you want to ask our speakers as we get to kind of the latter part of our content today, do drop them in that chat and I'll try and answer as many of them as I can. And if I can't, then we will send a bit of a follow-up so everybody has their questions answered. And then we finally ask for kind of confidentiality. So trust is critical to us, and what happens in our circle should stay in our circle. So feel free throughout the morning today to tweet, post, share, like, whatever it may be on your social media. We absolutely love it when we see posts across any of our forms of media, and we will kind of give you a retweet and speak back because we really like to kind of create that buzz around Lean In Leeds and what we're doing. So without further ado, let's get into the good part. Otherwise you could listen to me speak all day. And I really want to get to our amazing speakers. So today we have the lovely Claire, who is founder of Adesse, and she is also our Lean In Chair. We have Chloe Rushworth. So she's actually a PR manager at the digital marketing agency that I work for called Sticky Eyes. But she's also a social media influencer. And then we have Phoebe Dixon, who's a social media manager at 26 digital marketing agency, and she is a Leeds food blogger. But you guys know yourselves way better than I do. So I'd really like it if we could just do a bit of a round room for our speakers to introduce themselves. So Claire, would you be able to go first and give yourself a bit of an introduction?
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. Hope you are all right. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Claire Ackers. I am the chair of Lean in Leeds, but I'm here today to represent LinkedIn, talking about LinkedIn, because I've got 20 years experience of using LinkedIn professionally. So I'm going to be talking about that. My day job is, well, I've grown 2 six-figure businesses. One is a technology recruitment business. So I've used LinkedIn to find candidates. So if you're here because you're thinking about changing job, then hopefully I can speak to that. And if you've got any questions about that, then please ask me. And my other business is I am a authenticity and purpose coach. So I work with founders, mainly female, and leaders to help them work out what kind of leaders they are and live a authentic, purposeful life.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Chloe, are you able to give a small introduction?
Sure. Morning, everyone. I am Chloe, and I run an interiors Instagram called the White Pines Project, which I started up in maternity leave. We've moved and renovated a lot of houses. So that's something I kind of do as a sideline, and I'm really interested in interiors, always have been. And also, I work at Sticky Eyes, so I help manage the department and support from a strategy perspective. So yeah, that's it really. I guess my skills are quite transferable from working in PR to my Instagram. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to kind of build your presence online and let go of imposter syndrome as well, because I know that is something that everybody struggles with.
Yeah, I think that is a topic that we've covered a fair few times at Lean in Leeds and a few of us struggle with, so that would be absolutely fantastic. And Phoebe, if you could give a bit of an introduction too.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. So I'm Phoebe. I am a social media manager by day. So I've got plenty of experience in working across different industries, different sectors, and kind of growing clients' presences. And then my sort of hobby and passion project is my blog and my Instagram. So I've had my blog for nearly 11 years now. Started as a beauty blog, has kind of grown up with me into food, which is very much my passion now. And then I've also got an Instagram alongside that as well, which is at Eat with Phoebe, which kind of just focuses on the Leeds food scene and more so at the moment a bit more of cooking at home, obviously through lockdown. But yeah, similar to Chloe, I've got kind of transferable stuff between clients, and then I've kind of seen that influencer space change a little bit over the 11 years that I've been in it. So hopefully I have some good advice.
Perfect. Yeah, you are the person, Phoebe, that always makes me, when I'm scrolling through my Instagram feed, feel very hungry and want to eat out so much more. So in terms of the format today, what we're looking to do is we'll have a little bit of a mini session with each of our different speakers, just with some questions that I've kind of pre-prepared, just so you can kind of get to know each person individually. And then what we'll do for the last 15, 20 minutes is, I guess, open up the room to the panel as a whole. So that's where, if you've got any questions that you would really like to ask any of our speakers or all of our speakers, do pop it in the chat, and we'll try to ask as many of those as possible. So Claire, if you don't mind, I was hoping we could start with some questions for you. And to begin with, you must have the most lengthy CV of probably anyone I know, with the amount of different hats you wear for different roles, with your podcast, your leadership coaching, your business, working with Lean in Leeds. So I guess you are probably the person to ask on this type of topic. And I wanted to start with a bit of an open-ended one, but how important do you think it is for professionals to build their presence online?
I guess the easiest way to answer this is with my old recruiter hat on, and I'm a bit old school in that I always prefer to have a mix of professionals meeting face to face and growing network that way. I mean, that's what Lean in Leeds is at its heart, right? It's meeting face to face and building those connections, and a mix of strong online. However, I guess this past year has just made the importance of having an online presence just skyrocket. And what I've seen certainly is people have had to bring more of their personality online. So whereas before it might have been a bit more straight-laced and corporate, now in order to make those connections, we have had to get a bit more authentic in what we post online. So we are still making those connections. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, whilst staying true to yourself and being authentic, are there any, I guess, tick boxes or things that are really important for people to include in their online profiles that, employers would be looking for, or potential clients even?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we are talking specifically about LinkedIn, and what to include on that, I feel quite strongly about this, that most people are wasting their LinkedIn profile. I'm so sorry, I'm just distracted because someone's sitting in the waiting room, so I'm just going to get rid of that box. Yeah, so most people are wasting their LinkedIn profile, and it is a massive topic, but I just want to give a few of the not errors that I see people making, but some opportunities that people have to make their LinkedIn profile stand out. And if there are any more questions on that, then feel free to ask in the box, or find me on LinkedIn afterwards and ask me. But just to give you a whistle stop tour of what you need to be looking at on your LinkedIn. So get your basics right. I think most people see their LinkedIn profile as a CV, but I would say don't look at it as a CV, listing your job and your interests and your swimming certificates and whatever. It's more about a landing page to direct people to where they want to be. So whatever your aim is, so whether that is to get your new job, whether it is to sell your service or your products, whether it's to promote your blog, or whether it's to attract people to your business, think about what your objective is with your LinkedIn profile, and then curate it as such. So what I mean by that is make sure your profile picture is representative of how you want to come across, whether that is professional or suit. I think mine's me standing outside smiling. And then your LinkedIn banner as well is a wasted opportunity. This is basically your LinkedIn real estate. So for example, on mine, I've used Canva to create interesting, we mentioned imposter syndrome, because mine is banish imposter syndrome and get anything you want. So it's basically a freebie that I've created, a free video coaching to give people a taster of my style and how I work. A lot of people don't realize that you can have that freedom to put anything you want on your banner. I think the most important is your profile, what you have on your profile. So when somebody searches for you, this is your description, how that comes up. When anyone hovers over your mouse, this description comes up. And if you're looking in the search results, this is how you appear. So if you are trying to be on LinkedIn for any sort of purpose, this is what you need to really think about. So mine is performance coach, values-led, fast growth leaders and entrepreneurs, founder of Adesse, recruitment director, chair of Lean in Leeds, and podcast host. And that's how many words you can fit on. Whenever I come up in search results, that's what people see about me. Obviously you need to make sure your details are correct. You've got the correct spelling, grammar, whatever. And features is another one that a lot of people miss a trick on, because you can have quite a few different features. There's a features section, you have quite a few different things on there, depending on, again, what your objective is. So you can have projects on there, you can have your portfolio, you can have your products, you can have your CV if you want to, if you want to be really overt about your job search, and then people can reach you like that as well. And recommendations, make sure you've got recommendations and testimonials on there that again speak to your objective in your LinkedIn page.
That's something I've always been a bit uncertain about. Have you ever kind of encouraged people to go away and actively ask people to recommend them?
Oh God, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, if we're talking imposter syndrome, why not? Yeah, absolutely. If
Yeah.
you've worked with somebody, even if it's a co-worker, it doesn't necessarily need to be a boss or a client, but you say, look, I get most of my business through recommendation. I would love it if you'd write a few words in order to say how you found working with me. And there's a really easy button on LinkedIn. You can say ask for recommendation. It automates the whole thing for you.
Ah, that is something that I didn't know. That is really useful. I guess you've already answered this question. Oh, I think we're maybe getting a little bit of background noise. If everyone could just make sure that they are muted, that would be good. Thank you. I think you've maybe already answered this with that really full answer that you gave me anyway. But if there's kind of one or two things that people could do to make sure that they appear unique and really stand out amongst, I guess, the crowd of people, what would that be?
I think over the past year, a bit of a sweet spot has emerged in terms of LinkedIn, which is, I mean, LinkedIn has got a bit of a reputation for being a bit corporate, a bit beige, a bit straight-laced. And there is a sweet spot to be had between shouting about your professional experience and how great you are, and the kind of more social elements of Facebook and Instagram. Basically, if you can bring your personality into LinkedIn a little bit, then I think that is how you stand out. And LinkedIn has got a couple of new features recently that allow you to do this. So for example, it's recently brought in stories. Now it's nowhere as good as Instagram stories, but it is a feature that you can use, and the algorithm like you doing it, so you can appear further up the ranks if you use this feature. And similarly, live. So just like going live on Facebook and Instagram, you can go live on LinkedIn, and algorithm loves it. So you can talk about things. And I think they like people to talk for about 3 minutes. Now you do have to apply to get a live LinkedIn license, but again, it's a fairly new feature. So if you are looking to stand out and build your brand, I definitely recommend looking into it.
That's a really good idea. I guess it works particularly for those people who, are kind of in potentially online focused businesses. It really kind of gives you that edge above the rest where people are spending a lot of their time. And then one more question that I really wanted to ask you is, you obviously, you have your hands in a kind of lot of different pots with all of the different things that I mentioned before. Have you found that your online profile, I guess, or just building that online presence in general, has been more beneficial for one area over another? And do you, I guess, attack your social media and your online presence differently for the different things that you do?
Well, I'm an authenticity coach, so I kind of have to say that I have a consistent approach, whatever I do. But there is definitely an element of marrying all the different elements of what I've done in my career. So, for example, in my early days of headhunting, I like to say that I could track down anybody on LinkedIn. I've got some pretty good research skills. And it's a really useful skill to have when I'm looking to connect to my audience these days, which is a bit more senior perhaps. So it's about evolving while staying true to yourself, if that makes any sort of sense.
It does,
whatsoever.
yeah. It makes perfect sense. I remember actually one of the things that I mentioned to my head of recruitment that I was doing this particular session, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying before about including all those things that you do in your title, because you do have all of that character count. And he said one thing to be aware of is if you have kind of a long or like a bit of a fancy job title that isn't very descriptive of what you actually do, think about maybe including some more stuff that is really kind of about who you are, because that's what's going to make you appear for more potential employers, because they might not be searching on that fancier new job title that you may have. But yeah, thank you so much, Claire. We're going to move on to Phoebe next, just to answer a few questions. But if anyone does have any specific questions for Claire or any of our speakers, like I said, do drop them in the box and we can kind of come back to you at the end. So, Phoebe, like I said before, I am obsessed with your food blog. I think it gives me so much food envy and inspiration on a daily basis. And I know you've been doing this for 11 years now, I believe, over 11 years.
Yeah.
What gave you the inspiration to start that all that time ago?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it was just me wanting to kind of share my voice, give an outlet for my passion. So as I mentioned, I started my blog as pure play beauty blog. That was kind of my ultimate passion at the time. And ultimately I started it just because I saw other people doing it. So I'd spend a lot of time watching beauty YouTubers, reading blogs, all that sort of stuff. It was a very different space there. I'd say it was a much smaller group of people, and you kind of like got to know everyone in that space, whereas obviously now it's not that way at all. It's very heavily saturated. But yeah, it was ultimately just me wanting to share my voice. I felt like I had value to add in that space. So I started a blog. I literally just started it through Blogger or Blogspot, which I think is still around. Set it up with like the free template or default everything. I created my first header on Paint, which stayed with me for a couple of years. And yeah, just got going. So just started writing about what beauty products I was buying, what I was enjoying, and it grew through that. So it's just grown up with me really. Started as beauty, moved a bit more into lifestyle, and then is very much food and Leeds really now.
And I get 11 years is a long time to be doing anything. And I guess, I think if anything, the last year has taught us that it's, we've got so many different things to juggle and life often gets in the way. How have you managed to commit to social media, which can be super time consuming for such a long time?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, social media is a full-time job. It's my full-time job. So you can obviously put all of your spare time into it if you want. And for me, whether it's my blog or my Instagram or any other platform I'm on, it's my passion project. It's always kind of my side hobby and somewhere to put, it's my creative outlet, somewhere where I can write, which I really like doing. So ultimately, if I feel that passion wane a little bit, I do just take a step back. If I, get a bit disenfranchised with Instagram or kind of the influencer culture, I can take a step back. It's not my full-time income. Obviously, that differs if you are, a small business, or if you're a brand that's building your presence. It's not always easy to take a step back, but I think it's just looking at what you want from each of your platforms, and ultimately, how do you get there with setting some boundaries? So whether it is kind of time scales, so through my whole 11 years of doing it, when I was like blogging at the peak of my blogging, I guess, I'd commit a day a week. So normally Sundays, I would spend the full day writing content, researching, photographing, whatever it is that I needed for that piece. And that was my day for my blog. Obviously, I'd dip into it through the week, but that was like my boundary of, right, this is when I'm really going to go for it. And then I'd kind of manage it through the week. All of my content as well is me. It's just me being authentic. So, I can't stop being me. So that's how I kind of commit to it. And then ultimately as well, it's just, I'm really passionate about social media. So getting to play with the different features that launch or different formats on different channels, that's something I really enjoy. And it's something that can bring a bit of new life to your content as well. So if you're struggling for content ideas, for example, look at what's performed really well in the past and see if you can generate that idea again, but through a different format. So Instagram Reels, for example, is something I'm really enjoying at the moment. Never done anything like that before, but it's just a new outlet, and it's a way to get your personality across in a really easy way as well.
Amazing. So if there was somebody on this call today who was inspired what you've just said then, and it's like, yes, I want to go away and start my own blog or whatever it would be, what would be your, key tips or pieces of advice for that person?
I mean, basic, just go for it. Just get yourself out there. There's always got to be that first step of starting something. So whatever platform it is that you're looking to start on, just get your first piece of content out there and start playing with the different formats, different features. Think about what you want from it. So again, no matter what platform you're on, think about kind of what your goal for growth is. Why do you want to build your presence on this platform primarily, or why do you want to spread it through different ones? And find your niche as well, I think is a really important thing to mention, particularly now when every platform is so heavily saturated. Even with the really niche interests, there are hundreds, if not thousands or more people in that niche. So find your niche and find how you can bring it to life yourself. So I always say that personality is a niche, which I think goes back to the point that Claire was making of just sharing your personality and getting your voice out there. You know, there's hundreds of even just Leeds food bloggers, which is my niche, but ultimately nobody can be me. So sharing my voice, sharing my personality, and basically when I write captions, I try and write them how I speak instead of being really prescriptive about it, because I think that's like ultimately when there are so many different people out there, people connect with different people just as they would if they were meeting them. So if you can get your personality through that, then that's the best way to do it.
Amazing. I've seen a lot of your content actually where you're now kind of utilizing those features like reels and stories, and you're doing a lot of talking to a camera, which I can imagine is quite daunting, particularly when there's not actually another person there in the room with you and you're kind of just alone with your phone or whatever it might be. Do you have any tips on for people who are looking to build that type of content where they're speaking at a camera?
Yeah, I mean, again, just go for it. You've got to get started somehow. I've only started doing the sort of face to camera pieces on Instagram in lockdown, really, in the past year. And it was just another way to get my personality across. And I started using a lot of restaurant at home kits through lockdown. And I thought it was a lot easier to describe what was in the kit, what it looked like, how you use it, all of that sort of stuff, just by talking through it instead of writing a really long caption about everything that's in there. That's how I started doing it. But I mean, I'm a massive introvert. I'm still really shy about doing it. And even though it is just me, you know, I live with my boyfriend and I still ask him to put his headphones on when I'm recording because I don't like him hearing it. Even though I often run it by him before I share it, he's obviously going to watch it in the end. I get really shy. So I'd say one really big tip is just finding a way to record that you're comfortable recording. So whether it is something like that, whether it is, if you can find like a private space in your house to do it, you absolutely don't need all the kit like tripods and ring lights and all that stuff. Most of my face to camera stuff is literally my phone propped up on a box of tea in the kitchen. The lighting isn't great, but that's just what I do. And I think that as well, you know, I guess it depends what your presence is, but try and avoid being really slick and really professionally edited all the time, because I think having that personality and that realism is what people relate to. So that's just the best way for me to do it. And if you are really unsure or really nervous about putting something out there, potentially share it with your friends beforehand, if that's kind of a safe space for you to get feedback. Again, I'm really shy and I don't do that. I also didn't tell my friends about any of my blogs or any of my presents for quite a few years when I first started, because I was shy about them. But if you've got that group of people that you can trust and share it with for kind of feedback, approval or tips or anything, I think that's a really good way to shape what you're putting out there.
Amazing. And I guess besides your box of tea and paint, are there any tools that you would recommend for a beginner looking to start out with either a blog or social media?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need professional physical kits. Obviously, you can get your tripod and your ring light, which I have, but I don't use them for the majority of. I use it more for just static images or for reels if I want to do a setup with a tripod. In terms of kind of online tools, I think particularly if you're just starting out, but also at any point, particularly for Instagram, but I'm sure they exist on other platforms as well, take advantage of the sort of social media coaches and Instagram coaches that are online at the moment. There's loads out there, and they're some of my favorite content to follow. Phoebe Park, Grow with Vix, and I think it's Bird and Brand Management on Instagram are all, they're putting out their tips and advice on how to grow on Instagram, how to use different features, all that good stuff. So I definitely recommend seeking out some of those either in your niche or in your platform. And then other stuff, there's, like Plannerly is a tool where you can plan your Instagram feed if you want that kind of aesthetic feel. And it also lets you create content in bulk, so you can kind of put it all there and get it out. Utilize Instagram drafts. posts, if they work, they don't ever work for me, but utilize them and copy and paste your caption before you post it as well, so you don't lose all of the text. Buffer is a really good, really basic tool just to schedule social media content. I don't think it schedules Instagram yet, but really good to get it out there. InShot is really good for video editing. So if you want to do kind of cool transitions, or you just want something better than kind of your in-phone editor, really recommend that. And then Lightroom as well, just for editing imagery as well.
Amazing. We've had a few questions around links to your profiles and writing out these tools. What I will do is send a follow-up email out where we'll kind of have all of these links and list out all of the different tools that have been mentioned today, plus any other bits and pieces that are really key that get mentioned. So you will have that, plus a link to this recording, as we'll normally upload these on YouTube. And then finally, Phoebe, just a quick one before I move on to Chloe, because I have to ask, when restaurants open again this year, what is the top of your list?
The dream date, will it ever come? So, I mean, I could talk for hours on what restaurants to go to. I think my top picks is ultimate luxury. So if you haven't maybe spent much through lockdown, or you just want a treat to celebrate being allowed out, I would recommend Home Restaurant in Leeds City Centre. It is very expensive, but it is without a doubt the best food experience I've ever had, and really good service as well. For more accessible, I would say North Brewing, which is a bar, but it's got Little Bow Boy in there as well, but that's kind of my second home whenever it is open. Or Ox Club as well is always top of my list for really, really, really high quality food, but I think really reasonably priced for what you're getting.
Amazing. I love all those places. So fingers crossed we can all head out there again soon. Thank you so much, Phoebe. Again, if anyone has any more questions for Phoebe, do pop them in the chat. But yeah, moving on to Chloe. And I mean, I know you've always had a passion for renovation and interior design, but what made you kind of take that leap to turn your passion into, you know, that Instagram profile that now has so many followers?
So I think for me, we're now on house number 5, and on the last house that we did, I just wanted to document it really. It wasn't about growing it. It was just more about documenting it and having somewhere that was visual, that kind of showed all of the work that we'd done. Because obviously when you're renovating a house and there's so much to do, it's quite hard to kind of remember, and it's just a nice way to kind of keep that alive. So when I started it probably about 4 years ago, and I don't think that Instagram was such, obviously it was kind of up and coming, quite a big deal, but not quite like it is now. And as it's grown, there's become lots of niche communities, like Phoebe was talking about, loads of niche communities for different kind of interests. And obviously that's grown quite significantly. So the interiors one is quite a big one, and it's a really nice community to be part of. So it's just kind of grown from there, I think. Really, it wasn't to grow a following, it was purely just to document all of the work that we were doing on this particular house that we renovated. So yeah, that's it.
So you weren't expected from the outset that, you know, you were going to have such a big profile. It was just a bit of like a side project.
No, it was a bit of a side project. Obviously I have the relevant skills. I've done a lot of work in influencer in like my 12 years in industry. So I guess it's all transferable, isn't it? You know, when you work in PR, you're kind of used to promoting different brands, and you know, obviously I'm not a Phoebe, I'm not a social media manager, but I do have some understanding of social media and how it kind of impacts your brand and your business. So I think that probably has helped me. Lockdown, I would say, has massively helped as well. There's been far more people online, and I was on maternity leave last year with my second baby. So obviously lockdown, second baby, didn't really have anything to do, couldn't go anywhere. So I kind of used that time to build it up, and I spent a lot of time kind of creating content. It was like my outlet really to do something for myself, because it was quite an intense time having 2 young children at home. My eldest is just about to turn 5, and obviously he was meant to be at school, and that didn't happen. So yeah, it was just like my creative outlet, and a way for me to express something I'm really interested in, and it kind of just grew from there.
I think that's an amazing message, because I think sometimes we get so caught up in our day-to-day lives and family and work, and we forget to just take that time to do those things that bring us joy.
Yeah, and I think it seems ridiculous as well that I'm saying that social media is my outlet, because I know there's a lot of negatives of social media as well. But I think when you're involved in like a community, like the interiors community, like I've made loads of really nice like friends. I know it sounds absolutely mad, but you kind of get to know people in the same community and similar interests, and it's just a really nice place to be, especially when things are so kind of negative in the world. Yeah, it's just been a really nice outlet.
Amazing. So again, if there was somebody on this call today who's looking to try and build up particularly their Instagram profile, do you have any top tips for someone who is looking to build their following?
Yes, so mine would probably be to engage. Like, you need to engage with other people within your niche. Like, that is such a big part of Instagram, this whole community building. So engaging, commenting, watching stories, and replying to people, and just really getting in with the community really, and like using that as a way to kind of have chats with people is a really good way. Obviously, you've got so many features since I started on Instagram. So you've got, like Phoebe talked about, reels, and there's now a new guides feature, there's stories. So it has massively grown, and it's quite overwhelming because there's all these different types of content. But I think just trying to balance that and create different mediums of content and things that you really enjoy is most important. At the end of the day, it's all about you and your brand. So whether that's like a curated grid, or you really enjoy creating like reels take a lot longer as well to make than what they look like, I think. Maybe I just don't have that much experience in them. But yeah, just kind of utilizing everything on there. Stories as well are a really good way to get your personality across. So I try and make sure I do some stories every single day, even if I'm not posting. And yeah, just really engage with your community, and show your passion. And I think that's really the way that you grow on Instagram. Imagery is obviously very important as well. I don't think people realize the amount of time that goes into creating like an Instagram profile with like curated imagery. It's quite a big job, but obviously on Instagram, because it's all image led, it's quite a big thing to make sure that you've got imagery that's kind of reflective of whatever you are creating, and that it's nice, because that's what people ultimately want to see.
And again, have you got to make sure that it stays nice and visually appealing? Are there any little things that people can do, or do you just have to have a bit of an eye for these types of things?
I think it depends on your niche. So obviously when it's interiors, you've kind of got to be quite consistent. Like, I try and make sure that my grid is consistent. And I use an app called Snapseed to do all of my editing. So it's normally just lighting, like just lightening them and making sure like you can have your own set filters on there. So I don't actually filter them. It's just usually lighting and making it kind of curated. So yeah, I think it really depends on your niche. I don't necessarily think you have to have a curated feed. If you are a marketing influencer, so from a business perspective on there, then it's probably not so important. But obviously, because I am interiors, it is extremely important that my grid is quite curated and that it looks nice. My house does not always look as nice as what my pictures show, by the way. I do have 2 young children. And I always like to say that as well, because at the end of the day, Instagram is a very small part of people's lives. I tend to kick all the plastic tat to the side, get my pictures. It never looks like it actually does in my pictures. But yeah, it's dependent on your niche. But I think, it's quite important on Instagram that you've got that visual.
Amazing. As someone with a 10-week-old dog, I'm really glad to hear that, because my house does not look like yours does on your Instagram pictures at the moment.
Mine doesn't either.
I guess I've seen as well that you maybe have had the chance to work with some brands as a result of your Instagram profile. Can you tell us a little bit more about that in terms of who you've worked with and how those partnerships work?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've got a lot of experience working in influencer engagement. A lot of what we did at Sticky Eyes in the early days was kind of pure play influence. It was very different then, as Phoebe worked at Sticky Eyes at the same time. It was very different. People just tended to have blogs, so it was quite different to what it is now. But obviously those skills are quite, again, transferable for me. So working with brands is quite an easy thing for me to do. Like, I don't find it overwhelming. But yeah, I've worked with lots of really cool ones. So Snug Sofa, who do an amazing job on their social and influencer. Definitely one to have a look at if you are a brand, like not necessarily in that space, because I think it's all kind of transferable, but definitely one to kind of have a look at. Lick Paint as well. They are quite a new paint brand on the market, and they have done an absolutely amazing job. Had a few chats with them, got some things in the pipeline. Oh, who else? I'm just trying to think. There's been quite a lot. There's a few like print brands as well, like big ones. So I've done a few like paid partnerships with those. AO.com as well. So they sent me a washing machine. I can't believe I'm at an age where I'm being sent a washing machine and I'm excited about it. But they sent me a washing machine, and I did a paid partnership with them as well. I do have to be quite selective because I do get quite a lot of people contacting. So if it's a small business, I will tend to help them, because obviously everybody wants to help small businesses if they're relevant. But yeah, I've done quite a lot of sort of brand partnerships. And yeah, I think influencer is such a big thing for brands in like the lifestyle space anyway. Like, if you think about it, people buy from people, like, ultimately. And at the end of the day, I would say for a lot of these kind of interiors or lifestyle-led brands, fashion, that's how you're going to kind of make it really now, is to tap up influencers and get them working with you. Because if you've got someone who's really influential and they've got a story with a swipe up to your product, I guarantee that's probably going to drive more sales than a lot of other things will. So I think that's just quite an important thing to know if you are within that space.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We have had a question, but I'm actually going to open it up to everyone in case anyone else has worked with other companies in their time. But do companies contact you, or do you approach them?
Most of mine have contacted me. So it's usually that they will email me, and then we'll work out whether I'll always reply, but sometimes it might not be right. And if it's not right, I will reply and kind of say no. And if it is, then I did contact a stove company for a wood burning stove to see if I could partner with them. But it's a bit of a fine line. Like, I don't really want to be contacting people. Like, it's that imposter syndrome again, isn't it? Like, it's quite a big thing to kind of contact someone and put yourself out there. But I did end up working with them, which was probably my best thing that I've worked on. So that was a really good one. I think it just depends if they see the value in influencer. Obviously, with my background, I can kind of dig and research and see whether they are doing any influencer engagement, whether they are using social in that way. But generally, yeah, they contact me.
Amazing. So I am going to ask a few more questions, but do feel free to keep popping stuff in the chat as I run through them. So to whoever wants to answer this one, what would be your rules for creating engaging posts? Does anybody want to take that one?
I can do. So I would just say a few things I think each of us has probably touched on. So be authentic, put your personality across. And I think there's kind of two schools of thought on what content to put out, depending on what your niche is, or what your sort of look and feel of your Instagram or whatever page it is. It's whether you want to just put as much content out there as you can to kind of try and perfect it, get that practice out there, see what people like, or the other route where you can aim for pure quality content and more consistent posting, which is what I would recommend. It's what I recommend to clients. But there's the argument that while you're trying to perfect this one piece of content or spending hours and hours on a reel, maybe you're losing an opportunity to get engagement from not posting anything. So I would always recommend going for quality, but aiming for some kind of consistent posting schedule. But for me, it's always just about getting your personality and your authenticity out there, because I think that's ultimately what people engage with and want to speak with.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well, like about your personality, because my feed is very much my home and interiors, but then my stories do like show my boys and like my family life as well. And actually people engage better with those than just constant content about what's going on in the build. So yeah, I think so too. Just being authentic and yeah, being you, like that's the most important thing ultimately. It doesn't matter what other people think. You know, I've come to a point now where I'm like, it doesn't matter what other people think at the end of the day. Everybody's always got this niggling imposter syndrome, but just put yourself out there. Like if you're passionate about something, just do it.
Amazing. Any thoughts from you, Claire, on that particular point?
Yeah, just to build on what Chloe said, really, and Phoebe as well, of course. For me, it's about finding your micro tribe. So when I see content failing, it's because people try and appeal to everybody, and then appeal to nobody. But if you just worry about the 1% of people who are going to get you and who you want to speak to, and just speak to them, and build your micro tribe, that's the best way of adding value.
Amazing. There's actually another question for you here, Claire, specifically around when it comes to your online presence. Do you have any top tips for kind of striking that balance between your firm's corporate branding and being individual and your authentic self?
Gosh, it's been a while since I've had to worry about this. It's one of the reasons I set up on my own, so I could just do what I fancied. But the quick answer is you put a disclaimer at the bottom saying this view is my own. The longer answer, and actually feeds into something that is one of my absolute pillars and foundations, is that work for a company that echoes your values. And if you have a values match with that company, then there shouldn't be any conflict. But yeah, quick answer, just put a little disclaimer.
Perfect. And I guess to anybody again, but maybe start with Phoebe, given this was something that you were talking about in terms of the frequency. How consistent do you suggest for posting? Is it every day, 3 times a week? Is there a set rule for the amount of time?
I don't think there's a set rule, and it differs a little bit per each platform because obviously they all work a little bit differently. Instagram did release what they recommend, which is a really high volume of content. It's something like, I think, 5 story posts a day, 3 reels a week, a feed post every day, at least 1 IGTV a week, which for anybody is a lot of content and a big commitment to create that, especially if you're doing that every single week. For me, what I recommend more so to clients is just aim for consistency more than looking at your frequency. So if you have enough content and enough value to add by posting once a day or more than that, do that and get as much content out as you can. If instead you don't have either the means to create that much content, the time, or you want to just spread out the different content messages that you are sharing, just aim for consistency. So if that's every other day, great. If that's 2 times a week, great. I'd say on any platform, something that just touching something on what Claire said, use the different formats and functions available. I think every single platform will favor your content more, the more you engage with what they're giving you. So for Instagram, for example, don't just do static single feed posts. Try carousels, try video, use reels, use stories. I mean, Instagram has so many different outlets that you can put content on just within that one app. But I think I would always say, instead of aiming for I have to post every single day, instead just look at what is sustainable for you or your business to post and stick to that instead.
Perfect. I guess, is there agreement in the room with that particular message?
Yeah, I try and do 3 times a week, just because that's really what my schedule allows. And if I was creating any more than that, it just wouldn't be possible. But yeah, just consistently on specific days normally for me.
Perfect. And I guess we've spoken about, being your authentic self online, but there also is that kind of negative side sometimes to social media and the online presence. So I was wondering, how much of your real self should you be willing to share online if you want to build up that online presence?
I think there is a bit of a line. Obviously, when you work for a big international agency, you obviously have to kind of represent that as well. So for me, I share all of my kind of family life. I talk about work, but not obviously in detail. But yeah, I guess it's where you're happy to draw the line and what you think you're comfortable with, really. I just try and be myself, but not overshare. Like, I don't know, there's kind of a point where that negativity can come into play. So I try and make sure that my Instagram is a positive place as much as possible. Like, it's my positive place. So I try and kind of echo that. Doesn't mean my life is always positive, but it's just like that space for me. But from a professional perspective, Phoebe's might be better to answer that.
I think it's something that a lot of businesses are probably missing out on in sharing more of themselves, or more so maybe their staff, depending on how many people are there. But, you know, if you're a small business, share yourself, share behind the scenes processes, all that sort of stuff. If you're a massive business or you're involved with kind of the social channels of a business maybe you work for, I would always say share, like, utilize your staff, share their stories, again, like behind the scenes stuff or processes. There is always that balance, and it is always what you're comfortable with ultimately, because that goes back to that authenticity point as well. I think if you push yourself too far, you're probably going to start, well, burning out definitely, but getting to somewhere you're probably not comfortable sharing. But I think whatever your business, whatever your niche, people like people. So the more personality that you can put into it, whether it is just photos of your staff with captions, or you know, on LinkedIn, I would say definitely utilize video like person to person or person to video content, because, you know, there are people that do that on LinkedIn, but I think that's something not used a lot on there. So it'll help you stand out a little bit when obviously people are scrolling through the feed.
Perfect. Claire, was there anything that you wanted to add to that point before I move on to my final question of the morning?
Yeah, just really quickly, totally agree with the other two ladies. It's about your boundaries and recognizing what platform you're on as well. So, for example, I've got 3 kids. I wouldn't put them on LinkedIn. I think I've shared them in my stories on Instagram, but I do share pictures of them on my Facebook with my friends. So it's about those degrees of, well, with their permission as well, I would add. I have asked, well, not the baby, but I have asked them what's if they're happy for me to share them. But it's about it's personal choice at the end of the day, I think.
Amazing. We just had one little, I will squeeze this one in. So Phoebe, do you share your blogs on Instagram or do you keep them separate?
Yeah, I'll share them on Instagram. I'd say throughout my 11 years, my blog has probably had most traffic and most growth through Twitter, actually, because that's kind of where the community started when I first started my blog. But yeah, all of my social channels, I'll try and promote it, tag other brands as well. I think that's sharing on socials the best opportunity to get other brands to see your content. So obviously if you featured them in a post, whether they know or not, so, you know, if I'm just cooking with a certain branded pasta sauce or something, that's a terrible example, but I would tag that brand, and, you know, that's just kind of starting that conversation. Often you'll get a lot of organic shares off the back of that as well, and it just improves your reach, which is always a good thing.
Amazing. So final question, and I guess if you were to just say in a sentence, what is your one piece of advice today for someone going away who wants to build their online presence a bit more? So Phoebe, what would you say to that one?
I would say be authentic, share yourself, and try new things. Ultimately, just go for it. So if you're only on Instagram and you only post on your feed, try doing some personal story content, or try reels. Reels are being pushed massively at the moment, so I would always recommend playing with the new features as soon as they come out. Get on them early.
And what about you, Chloe?
Quite similar, actually. I would just say, you know, be you and do what you love as well. Like, share what you love. If there's something, it doesn't have to be work related. Like, if there's something that you really love that's like a passion project, then share it. And do that for you, and ultimately try and forget about imposter syndrome, because it's something I massively struggle with. I would probably be seen as quite an extroverted person, but actually I'm relatively introvert in a way, and I think everybody has that niggling thing, oh, but what if? Just do it, go for it, share what you love, and yeah, that's it.
And finally, Claire, do you have final summary words for someone looking to build their presence online?
Totally agree with Phoebe and Chloe. I would also add value. Think about what you can talk passionately about, think about what your audience would like to see from you, and think about how to add value and serve before asking for anything.
Perfect. I love these mornings. I feel so inspired after I hear everything. It's making me want to go away and just post all over Instagram. And I feel like I'm going to have to do my first reel after today. Just need to find my area where I'm passionate and I can add value.
Maybe that should be the challenge we should leave everyone with.
Yeah,
go away and do the reel.
I would love that. And if you can tag Lean In Leeds, that would be perfect, because I'd love to, see the stuff that you're posting, and we can share it out on our Instagram account as well. So yeah, challenge who can do the best reel. I'm not allowing Phoebe, Chloe, and Claire to be involved. Competitive advantage. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you so much to all of our speakers. That was amazing advice and really lovely to hear on, I guess, what's now turning into a bit of a cloudy Thursday morning. Just a little note as well. We had our International Women's Day evening event the other day. So if you really enjoyed that, or even the event today, we have an upcoming evening event on the 5th of May on the topic of She Can, We Can. So again, we'd love to see you there. We'll send out all of the comms on our usual channels, but do stay tuned for the link to that Eventbrite. And have a lovely day, everybody.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks, bye.